Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Welcome to another interesting chess video. Today we are going to look at an amazing game between NGANI Victor from Kenya and ANTENAINA from Madagascar. He has a very hard name to pronounce, so I won't massacre the name. But the guy is one of the best from Madagascar and is also playing one of the best from Kenya, Victor. These games were played during the Zone 4.4 African Chess Championship and they were played in Antananarivo, capital city of Madagascar. So the game was epic. This was the game between the best of the best, and when the best of the best meet, it's just fireworks and amazing game. So without much further ado, let's dive into the game. First, you're going to watch the game, then we are going to analyze. Let's dive into the game. So after 31 moves of play, black resigned and white won the game. As you have seen, the game was short but sweet. So let's dive in and see how the game was. So the game starts with e4, and then black responds with the Sicilian defense, and then here white goes for a very interesting attack called the Maya's attack, whereby he plays e4, he plays a4. So this is a normal, not quite normal, but a very sharp response towards the Sicilian. If you know the theory, it can be quite advantageous, but if you don't know, it can be a disaster to you. Black continued with normal development for Sicilian. That is, knight c6 was played, and then bishop to b5 was played. In this particular position, it's quite interesting for me to note that the best response for black is to push pawn to a6, preventing bishop to b5. So it is by preventing this particular bishop putting pressure on d7 that the best play for black is to prevent that by pushing the pawn to a6. But during the game, black continued the normal development for Sicilian, continuing just developing normally, and then another particular interesting position is in this particular position when white made this particular move, pawn push to f4. Also part of the Maya's attack, which usually leads to a disaster, whereby this pawn push are usually massive and are usually deadly because they occupy a lot of central square. As you can see from this particular position, white already is dominating the center, and it's quite not a very good thing for your opponent to be taking full control of the center where your pieces are not yet fully developed, as you can see in this position. So the game continued, bishop to g7, and then knight to f3, and then here black played also a very interesting move, knight to d4, like threatening to capture the bishop on b5. But as you can see, this international master was not so much concerned with the exchange, but was quite rather interested in continuing with his development. And in this position, he shot castled, and black responded by pushing the pawn to a6, and white moved his bishop to c4. But in this position, bishop to d3 was much better, but bishop to c4 is not that bad, but the game continued nevertheless. So an interesting move was played here, pawn to d6, and then c3 was played, kicking the knight, and here black played this particular move, bishop to e6. As you can see, this is actually not a very bad move, but it's an inaccuracy because it has its disadvantage, because as much as it's a double purpose move, because if bishop takes, If bishop takes, knight takes, it looks like it achieves a lot in one particular move, because first of all you're getting rid of the white colored bishop, and also you are getting your knight from the attack, using from the attack of the c3 pawn. But it's an inaccuracy because you see, once the trade is complete, that this particular nasty pawn push, pawn to f5, and once it is like a forced trade, because once this particular pawn push to f5 will be attacking both your knight that will be on e6 and this particular pawn on g6, so you'll be forced to take, and once you take, you'll have damaged your pawn pawns that usually protects the king on the king side, and somehow your king will be exposed, and it won't be good for you. So this particular move, bishop to e6, wasn't that good. It was an inaccuracy, though during the game white didn't maximize on that. Instead, after the capture, he played queen to b3. In this particular position, black responded with queen to c7, which was quite a good move, because he was protecting the pawn on b7, but a better move would have been knight to f6, and if maybe white would have gone ahead and captured the bishop on b7, still black had the advantage of picking the pawn on c4, and it would have been somehow like a trade of pawn, and he'll have actually have the advantage of that particular move is that he will have developed his knight from g8. But during the game, white played bishop to b3, and here black missed a free pawn, which was instead of bringing the rook to c8, this particular pawn on f4 was free, because let us see, you will have just captured the pawn, and then if white will have responded with g5, putting pressure on the f7 pawn, though this interesting move, pawn to e5, which will have protected the f7 pawn, and you will have won that particular pawn that was on f4. And if maybe white will have attacked the knight by pushing the pawn on g3, black still had this check and will have exchanged this particular bishop. So here black missed a free pawn during the game. I don't know why he decided to go for rook to c8, but nevertheless the game continued. So white pushed the pawn to d3, protecting that particular pawn, and knight to f6 was played. And then here an interesting move by white, threatening to win a pawn, because after this exchange we'll have won a pawn. But black responded appropriately by this particular move, knight to d8. As we'll see later, yes, it was a good move, but it somehow costed him during the game, because by the fact that this queen was pointing towards this particular diagonal, it was not quite good for black. So it was kind of a positional play, whereby white decided to put the queen on b3. So nevertheless, the game continued. Here the knight entered into a dance, and then black played h6, kicking away the knight. The knight fell back. And then queen to c6 was played. And then f5, castles. And then from this particular position is where now the game starts being interesting. Is where now the fireworks begin. So black played queen to b5, offering a queen trade and also attacking the pawn on d3. But white simply declines by bringing his queen to c2, protecting the pawn, and also declining the trade. So the game continues. Pawn to g5 was played, and this move was actually a positional inaccuracy that will later cost black in a very big way. So as you can see in this particular position, white pieces are very well placed and are very much active. As you can see, the knights are at the central position, controlling many squares compared to black's knights, which are quite not active and quite not controlling much squares in their respective position. So I think pushing the pawn to g5 was not that much better move, because as you can see, the best move for black in this position was to activate his knights to better squares. So during the game, white immediately maximized on that inaccuracy by pushing the pawn to h4, offering an exchange. And then here black made, I can say, the biggest capture mistake of the game, because this particular capture is was the beginning, or maybe the downfall for black. And from here things started going south immediately for black. Things didn't go well from this particular position. So it's quite interesting that from here the best move is actually to kick the queen first, and then there are much better threats than capturing this particular pawn. As you can see, after the knight falls on d5, there's also this threat of the family fork, forking the two rooks and the queen. And also in this particular position, after this particular move, pawn to c4, the queen doesn't have much square, otherwise it will be trapped, and the best position is the best move for it is to fall back to c6. So during the game, white played queen to f2, which wasn't bad, but it wasn't the best. The best move was actually knight to d5, and after the capture, knight to d5 was played, threatening the family fork, but black responded by bringing the rook to f7. So the game continued. The knight were exchanged, and then this interesting move is like bringing the all forces towards the attack. And you can see once this particular file opened, things became very bad for black. So black responded by queen to e8, then rook to g3, putting the guns, or rather cocking the guns, ready to fire. King to h7 was played, which didn't yield much, because now from here rook to g6, it was now just game over for black, since it was just a matter of just putting the final nails into the coffin. So black tried, you can say, the last kicks of a dying horse, but nothing much could save black in this particular position. And then here white played a very brilliant move. Bishop takes h6. Black responded with taking with the bishop, and then rook to h1 was played. Since the bishop is pinned, and black responded with rook to g7, and from here is just a mate in 4. Nothing much that black can do to save him from the mate. If you like, you can pause the video and try to solve the mate in 4. If you can see it, then it was rather forced mate from this position. So the game continues with the rook to h6 check, queen to g8, queen to h8 check, queen to f7, king to f7 I mean, and then the killer move, queen to h5, trying to block, and then a beautiful checkmate on g6. So that's how the game went. Very interesting game, very epic game, quite intense game. Various lessons we have learned from the game. And from this particular game, first of all, the IM completely outplayed his opponent, and it is quite interesting that how a simple capture on move 20, this particular capture This particular capture on move 20 was all that White needed to end the game. And it's interesting that in this kind of this higher level game, that a simple capture is all that your opponent needs to finish you. So this particular move was quite a bad move, ended up costing Black, and White did a very excellent job towards punishing Black for that particular capture. It wasn't necessary, but nevertheless we learn and we move on. So, and also another very interesting lesson that we can learn from this particular game is that Black allowed White to control the center, and this is actually demonstrated in this particular position, as I have explained earlier. As you can see, White is completely dominating the center. All of his pieces are active, and Black's pieces are not that much active. Also, as you can see, these particular pawns are very well placed, occupying and controlling many squares at the center, and it's not a good thing to allow your opponent to have so much control of the central square, and also allowing such weaknesses, an open file in your king's side, isn't such a good idea, because your opponent can actually utilize such positional inaccuracy to win the game against you. So I hope you have enjoyed the video. Hope you have learned something. I've enjoyed the game myself. The game was epic, interesting game. Our very own Victor from Kenya played well, but the IM played better. So let me know what you think about the game in the comment section, and bye bye for now. See you in the next interesting game review. Bye.